Hi, and welcome to Community Conversation. My name is Ana Gopoian, and I am the founder, executive director of TriCircle, a nonprofit helping individuals, families, and communities affected by addiction. And with me today, I have the pleasure of introducing...
Hi, my name is Tonia Warner. My Celebrate Recovery intro, as we say, is that I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I celebrate 11 years of opioid addiction from childhood trauma, and I work on abandonment and control issues.
Fantastic. I'm so grateful to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard about Celebrate Recovery, and I'm happy to say that our organization has had your hyperlink to your information and website on our page for years now, because nice. I just think it strengthens our options and choices. And I, too, long-term recovery, July 13th, 1995.
Nice.
Yes, yes,
Congratulations.
Yes. I always say I'm going out sideways with skid marks. For all the people that told me I couldn't.
Right?
Right? Yes.
I like to say that God drags me kicking and screaming sometimes because I don't want to go somewhere and face something.
All the time. Yeah, yeah. It gets easier.
It
you
does.
should know, like even with the Serenity Prayer.
Yes.
Right? Isn't the end is where we're supposed to believe in the fact that, it's the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
So I believe we don't have to kick and scream as much.
No, he's in control in our world. The one biggest difference, like with AANA, we want to complement them.
Absolutely.
Because we do use the 12 steps that they use.
Yeah.
But we also use biblical scripture to go with those steps, So it's one of those things where in doing the steps, we acknowledge that Jesus is our higher power that's getting us through to heal us.
That's great.
And he is totally in control of everything.
That's great. I'm glad you found something that works for you.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty in the steps, no matter or programs that people do. Like even we started engaging with folks and trained facilitators with Smart Recovery. And for different reasons. There is no denomination of a higher power. There's no labels. So you are not something. It's evidence-based. There's just different practices in a curriculum, which Celebrate Recovery. It's basically a curriculum which is paralleled with the Bible.
Yes.
So...
Yes, and the reason that we say that we're a grateful believer is that's how we identify.
Exactly.
We don't identify as our addiction, our hang-up. We say that, Celebrate Recovery is for all hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And so, the hurts are the things that have been done to us in our lives, that hurt our hearts. And those things end up leading to our hang-ups and how we think and feel about ourselves, about God, other people, and they lead to our habits. And that's my story. The childhood trauma and the hurts that I had. I was caught in cycles of addictions because of all of that throughout my life.
We're survivors, though.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do as we move through life. When our peers may be our challenge, right? When the home might not be safe, but it appears to be one way in society. Right? And then something happens, and if you're not heard or believed, you acclimate. Right. And then you survive. And I always say drugs weren't my problem. Drugs or behaviors, both could be addictive. They weren't my problem. They were the solution to an older problem. And if nobody's anywhere because of our broken system long enough, you're never going to get to the story before the story. Why did I do it in the first place?
Right.
Right. How does your pathway support the parents, guardians, and loved ones affected by someone in their life with an addictive behavior?
Well, that's where we encompass everything. So when we say hurts, habits, and hang-ups, not everyone's addictions become the same, and the balance is, people have the stigma around opioid addiction and what it is. And with Celebrate Recovery, people have the stigma that recovery is just for addicts. And it goes beyond that. So we offer a program for people who struggle with codependency. We have different parts of the program for military called Welcome Home. We have mental health ambassadors. I'm also an opioid ambassador. What we do is bring awareness of Narcan, how to save lives. Why does addiction start? You know, that it's not something people choose, but it's what helps people deal with that they've become addicted to.
Self-managing.
Self-managing
their own pain and
those
trauma.
hurts, those hang-ups,
Yeah.
those traumas. You know, some of the things, you know, and hurt, you know, people who have been abandoned, adoption, abuse, you know, trauma, you know, people often think it's a physical thing that we've been through. But trauma can be so much more than that, and things that were done to us mentally, emotionally. You know, I was very young at 9 years old. My dad had died on Christmas Eve. And that played such a traumatic piece in my life. And I had been adopted at 3. And before that, I have very vivid memories of abuse that I went through at that time. But when my dad died, it was like my world came crashing down.
Was he like the person that your protector?
Oh,
Was
my
he-
dad was
yeah.
an amazing
Isn't
man.
that amazing? He passed on Christmas Eve, and
Yeah.
prior, and with your pathway, in the symbolism of Jesus's birthday, isn't that kind of a way to help your grief?
Yes.
To celebrate your father.
Yeah. There wasn't things out there to really help children. And of course, I was one of those kids.
You seen and not heard?
No,
Or
I was
happens in the
heard
house?
and I was a hot mess.
All right.
You know, we're a hot mess coming into recovery.
Right,
So
right.
come as you are, because we all have issues.
It was like, stay away, and I need love so badly.
Well, no.
It's like this constant, for me it was anyway.
Yeah, no, I was a rebellious child.
Right, but that
I-
was your front.
That was how I dealt with
So that's
things.
what I mean by
I
yeah.
seek the love in all the wrong places.
Right, right.
You know, and for me, the abandonment and stuff came from the men in my life that were supposed to be, like my dad died. You know, so that started that. Then I had a stepfather that died. And then my biological father had abused me. You know, so those father figures, so why would I want anything to do with God anyway, you know, because the father figures abused and neglected me. So I wasn't good enough for God because of the choices I was making, you know, and I had to come to realize that, you know, those things didn't define me. You know, how he sees me is what's important. Don't worry about how other people see me. Those mistakes don't.
I am not
you
my
know.
past and what has happened to me. Kinda.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You know, so it you know, there was a lot of things, and in my adulthood, I've made a lot of bad choices. You know, and
You're human.
I was human.
Yeah.
But what had started my addiction, truly what started my addiction, was I was in a very bad car crash, and pretty much everything from the waist down was broken. And I was being prescribed the Oxycontin back in 2000, and that started my addiction. And eventually, after 10 years of being prescribed this, I realized that it numbed the physical pains, and I could push so much out. And, you know, it ended up ultimately leading me to do prison time. And I found Celebrate Recovery inside
There
the
you go.
jail, because they bring that into the
Right.
jails.
That's awesome.
And, you know, that's where I started working on those childhood traumas. And I came out, and I ultimately, when I came out, I had dealt with another abandonment of my husband of 15 years, had abandoned me while I was in prison. So all of that emotion came flooding back, and I didn't have the church foundation or support in the Christian support I needed. And I relapsed. And this was in 2013. And I did heroin for the first time. That's my story.
Less expensive than
Yeah.
the pills.
I overdosed and was, you know, I say Narcan saved my life. Jesus saved my soul.
There you go.
I got on methadone. And so it's been 11 years now. Off methadone now for 5. But I've done the different pathways. And it was one of those things where I went and I got my recovery coach certification in Vermont because I wanted to help people in addiction. And then I found my church, and basically I started asking about starting a Celebrate Recovery program. And we did. And I'm the ministry leader now at mine. I'm the
In Vermont?
in Vermont.
Okay.
I'm a representative for the whole Northeast region of Celebrate Recovery and the opioid ambassador. And I love what I do.
That's great.
You know, and it's not just helping people in addiction. I have people that come to my group that deal with loss, grief, you know, all sorts of other traumas that have led them to, you know, different things about how they feel.
For our organization, we have a memorial quilt project. We have a memorial scholarship fund. We have support groups that are Hope After Loss. So they're very specific, and they're for folks that have lost someone due to a drug-related passing.
Yeah.
So either it be a poisoning with the fentanyl, accidental overdose, drug-induced suicide, murder surrounding addictive behaviors. Like, so bringing them together and finding a different community. Right, it's different. It has a whole nother layer of stigma. Do you, in support of Celebrate Recovery, help people move forward different?
There is a new program. Actually, I just did a training on it today.
Oh, great.
Where it's called Grief and Life Choices and Life's Healing Choices.
Is it within CR?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Good to know.
The founder, John Baker's wife, has launched this to help people deal with the grief of losing a parent, a spouse, a child. And there is a representative for that division of Celebrate Recovery here in Connecticut.
Oh, that's good.
And because I've had a lot of people ask me about grief and support.
And it's inevitable. Everybody's going to die, but some of these premature deaths, these tragedies, these, you know, it's heartbreaking. And what do you do with that? How do you be powerless? How do you believe in what you believe in and assist people? Sometimes it's just listening. Right? So, but having something different, I have a page specific to bereavement, grief, and loss. And we have services specific to that, so I want to make sure that I hyperlink it there as well as a different component of what's being offered in CR. It might not be specifically what we offer, but as I said earlier when we first met, I believe together we're stronger.
Right.
Right?
Well, we're not meant to go through life alone. God never intended that.
And we have more similarities
That's why
than
there
differences.
was Adam and Eve.
Right.
It was never intended for us to go through life alone. You know, and we're forever family in CR. You know, we're all family. I met people today that were hugging me that I'd never met before. You know, and it was just great because we all have that thing in common. We're there for healing. We're there to be the people that can reach out and bring out to people the healing and the experiences that we've had to help them heal. And everybody heals differently. Everybody grieves differently, you know. And one of the best things, too, that I learned about the new grief program is it's all online. Their meetings are on Zoom. So, like, we have a what we call the full expression meetings at our local churches. Where in the first hour we have a praise and worship time, and then we either do a teaching on one of the steps or hear a testimony from somebody in Celebrate Recovery. They alternate from week to week. And then after that 1 hour meeting, we do a 1 hour open share group. And depending on the size of the CR, they can go into open share groups for issue specific things. A lot of CRs may be on the smaller side. Mine is one of them in Vermont. So it's a mixed issue. So, and it is gender specific. So the women are with the women, the men are with the men.
That's safer.
You know, and you know, there's things that people struggle with.
Well, that's how we learn to be better people of those demographics too.
Right.
Right? However.
Well, I mean, if you're struggling with some sort of, say, sexual impurity or pornography and you have an addiction to that, you don't want to talk about it. Or if you've been assaulted as a woman, you don't want to talk about that in front of a man. So it's important to keep that separate.
Absolutely.
You know, but people will sit in the room, you know, with the mixed issues, and you'll have people with eating disorders. 1 in 3 people are actually in Celebrate Recovery for a substance use. The rest are in there for something much bigger or, you know, different than that.
We see substance or behavior addiction it encompasses those. What people leave whether or how they found their pathway, if it was through prison or treatment, or they watched something or met someone, or however, I want people to know too that there's what's called a transfer of addiction. If your brain is unhealed, right, and you don't have a community around you that you're sharing about, sometimes people pick up another substance, thinking it was only a substance that was their concern,
addiction for another,
or a behavior. So when you're not aware, and again, and I bring it back around to the family, the parent, the guardian, the loved one, like if they're not working on themselves, a lot of the time what comes out, they'll show up at a group, and they'll show up because they have a loved one that's suffering, and they may be, in their eyes, the problem, when all they have to own is what's theirs.
That's right.
Right? And how do you pull out of the disease? How do you pull out of its grasp? Because you have a belief system that has a support, and I have my own support and my own beliefs, but all of it, you have to stand outside of it to be able to view it almost.
Right.
Right? And then I just think there's so much hope in saying that.
And I think that's why we also have a lot of the relapses that we have, because people don't give themselves the time to mentally change what has caused that addiction. They come out, they go in for 20 days, 25
That's
days.
nothing.
It's nothing. Even 90 days.
And you're kicking and screaming, so you're not even applying it in that short amount of time. Or you're just sick.
It takes a good solid year for that chemical makeup in your brain to change, to revert back to, okay, I don't need to do this.
That's if you're safe. And that's if all your other needs are met. Job, food, work, housing.
Right.
Like there's so many parts and pieces to treating a whole person. Your spirit, your mental health, your physical being.
That's where the recovery coaching can come in play, and being connected into ultimately all different types of recovery pathways.
Right.
To maintain and to deal and process. Like, we don't fix people, and that's one of our guidelines. We're not here to fix you. We're not counselors. We're not psychologists. And if we are, that's our job. That doesn't come into our meetings.
Right.
We
have
don't
access. We have clinical services through our organization, and that's what they do. So we always refer. People call us, and I'm like, I'm sorry to hear that, but we have something, and we can offer direction.
Right.
We don't make choices. We don't make decisions.
Exactly.
It's super important to empower people.
Right.
To empower them with their own choice.
Right.
And they're not alone.
Well, that's like we have Turning Point in Vermont.
I'm aware of Turning Point too, sure.
So, you can...
They're here
Turning
too.
Point, you get those resources and options. And a lot of people aren't aware that Celebrate Recovery is an option, and some people aren't, they've been church hurt.
Right.
You've got the fact that people see it as a religion with rules and, and our thing is it's not about the rules.
Right.
It's about relationship with Jesus.
And there's good and bad in everything.
And
it doesn't matter the denomination.
We've all been hurt. We've all hurt people.
Right.
But this just helps us to get through that and find more effective ways of dealing with it.
For those people that choose that path.
That's right.
Fantastic.
But it's important for people to know that's an option.
That's why it's on my website.
You get to the end of your rope. You hit that rock bottom.
That window of opportunity to do something different.
Absolutely.
Right? You were a captive audience when the message came to you. You were a captive. You were given an opportunity to be still enough to hear.
Oh, yes.
And you had opportunity to have the time to show up.
Break the chains.
But I'll ask this because it's probably beneficial to someone else. Always is, right? What was the continuity between DOC, Department of Corrections, and back into society? Did CR come to you and help you in a handoff? Did you reach out to them?
Well, I was in Florida.
Okay.
And so when I got released, it was one of those things where they put me on the bus and shipped me back home to Vermont.
Okay.
And wasn't on probation. I served, the time that I had to serve. I was free and clear. So it was one of those things where when I got off the bus, that was it. It's up to me. It was up to me.
Right. But did you make that relationship prior, though? Were you given that kind of an engagement? Like, here's where you're going. There's your new resources.
From DOC.
From DOC. In the CR that you had access to while you were in DOC. Did you make that connection prior to leaving? Because I'm always telling people while they're being, however they may be in an institution or working with an agency, continuity is the key to success.
If I had stayed in Florida, they could have offered that.
No, I'm saying with a peer, a counselor, a recovery person that might have been coming in and working with folks, did they already explain that there was CR in Vermont? Did they already give you the contact name and number?
No.
So that's what I'm hoping that we continue to do.
Well, and that's
like
what
you
they
can
are
do that,
doing now.
I can do that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's all encompassing now, you know. The CR Inside program is run by some incredible people, John and Shirley Molina down in Texas. And actually the woman who is the Northeast Regional Director was at the conference here in Connecticut.
Great.
Talking to people about doing it and how you can go into the prisons and minister, you know, and giving those people those skills and resources so when they come out, they can find a CR.
Right.
You know, on the CR locator now, it's a new locator.
That's great.
That they've rolled out. And I actually was helping to build it in the Northeast. And so you could type in your zip code and you can find where there's a Celebrate Recovery closest to you.
And a helpline? Do they have a number or anything that you're able to share? It's all on the website? Good. Good.
You know, and the best thing, too, is on top of finding a Celebrate Recovery, you know, where there is one, the date, the time, you'll be able to email their ministry leader. You'll be able to know if they offer a meal before their meetings, if they offer Celebration Place or the Landing. And the Celebration Place and the Landing is...
Like community center?
No, these are two, I firmly believe, crucial programs to celebrate recovery and breaking the generational curses in families. So Celebration Place is a pre-recovery program for children ages 5 to 5th grade.
Fantastic.
So when mom and dad or just one or the other is in celebration or Celebrate Recovery, they're in Celebration Place learning about the steps. So they're going to be able to navigate and maneuver through life and hopefully not make the same mistakes mom and dad did.
Right.
And, you know, have a better foundation and toolbox growing up. And the Landing is for 6th grade to 18.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's a program for teenagers.
I always say it's tough raising parents.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes we're
And how many
positioned where our
teenagers have had
trauma...
to do that.
Right. And that's where a lot of the stories begin.
Yes.
But when you're safe amongst your peers in your correct age demographic, so that's another fantastic thing that's being offered.
Yes.
And it's similar. I love the similarities between the different programs. So I think it's super important that you continue to share what's going on, and you know, we continue to make these resources available.
Yes.
Right? I'm not going to us and them. It's got to be us and we, and then, you know, the website where Celebrate Recovery, I have hyperlinked on our website. There's like at least 15 options.
Yeah.
You know, and it's from first the parent, guardians, and loved ones, then the folks that may be affected with an addictive behavior. So there's choices, and then there's also mental health. There's veterans. So I'm trying to build the subsections in children, right? So the folks that we help are 18 plus, but I need to know that there are grandparents raising grandchildren.
I'm one of those people.
And I'm sorry, and I'm happy that they have you in their lives and information that will support you as you move forward.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that was my passion in starting Celebration Place at my CR in Vermont.
Fantastic.
We were the first ones in Vermont to be able to offer it because I watched the emotions that my grandson has gone through. And he's only 7. And I've had him since he was 2 weeks old. But I've watched those emotions and knew. And real quick, I'll tell you a little funny, you know, and I know that this works for him and he's paying attention. We went out on the lake last week and walked on the ice and stuff. And I said, hey, Luke, guess what? We're walking on water. Yeah, G-Ma, he says to me, he says, but it's not like Jesus did because his wasn't frozen.
Right on. He has a really, that's a sweet association, though.
Yes,
You know?
yes. You know, and
it's
we've
unpolluted,
seen such a
you know?
change in
That's
him,
great.
you know, in his spontaneity and, you know, impulsivity.
But he's safe with you.
Yes.
That's what I saw all my life.
Yeah.
There's the presence in the community, and then there's that need to feel safe.
Right.
You know, so that's really a beautiful thing. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up, and it's been an honor and a privilege. I will be in Vermont. I'll have to share with you later on today where in Vermont I will be with my longtime friend of over 55 years. And so I can stop up. I can share some additional resources you might not be aware of, and you can share them with your organization and people and peers. And
Absolutely.
yeah, together we are stronger for sure.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that your Wallingford CR has been the longest one running in the state, and they are very solid. And you've got one over in Middlefield as far as locally. I have a list, you know, if people can't get onto the CR locator on the computer, I have a list that I have for you that people can find a CR within 25 miles of Wallingford, and there's 11 throughout the entire state.
That's fantastic.
So,
That's
absolutely.
good stuff. Yeah, and like I said, the website is hyperlinked on our page, and I'm sure working with the community now and wanting to share and express the other pathways that are available, this is only going to make us better as human beings.
Absolutely.
To come together to the solution. Because hope, I always say, hold on, pain ends.
Yes.
There's a way to the other side, and it doesn't have to be so hard anymore.
It does not.
So we're going to talk again for sure, but right now I want to make sure that I thank everybody for taking the time to come to Community Conversation, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.